Well, this revolt in Libya has triggered a mass evacuation of foreign nationals, as you might well imagine. China has sent a Navy ship to protect citizens leaving Libya. Beijing says a missile frigate has been diverted from anti-piracy duties in the Gulf of Aden to escort ships carrying Chinese evacuees. And 2 planes also sent by the Chinese government touched down safely in Beijing, carrying more than 250 Chinese nationals. 30,000 Chinese workers believed to be in Libya when the fighting broke out. Relief in Athens airport. Greek nationals safely airlifted home from Tripoli. Most described scenes of chaos in the Libyan capital. One said he witnessed what he called 4 cold-blooded executions in the streets. We were talking about Italy before, the relationship with Libya. Well, a group of UN workers evacuated from Tripoli arrived at a military airport outside of Rome. They include Italians and other European Union citizens, flown back on 2 Italian military transport planes mobilised by the country's Foreign Ministry Emergency Unit. Now, earlier we've heard from Antonio Guterres, who is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Told us the main concern wasn't for those who have gotten through, it's those who are unable to get out.
For the moment, we had about 40,000 people crossing both the Tunisian border and the Egyptian border. The large majority are Tunisian citizens and Egyptian citizens going back to their countries of origin. But we are having some Libyans crossing too, and we are having also nationals from other countries. And what we are very, very much worried about is with the fact that a lot of people are trapped inside the area of Tripoli. They cannot escape, and we are witnessing a carnage. We are witnessing a terrible bloodshed. And in the worst affected areas, there is not even a possibility to flee. We also know of Libyans that tried to cross the border into Tunisia, and the Libyan forces around the border were still controlled by the government, not allowing them to flee. So that is indeed a big concern for us, is that people are suffering horribly, and those that are really suffering horribly are not being able to flee, and we have not the capacity to assist them.
Think about the effects wider afield from the Middle East, because all this unrest is continuing to push up oil prices, which affects pretty much the entire rest of the world. This report is from Rob Reynolds in Los Angeles on the effect the price hikes are having on consumers there.
Motorists in Los Angeles are reeling from hefty fuel price hikes.
Yeah, ridiculously high. Sure, they get away with it. Who's going to stop them?
Oil has flirted with the $100 a barrel mark in recent days as the violent upheaval in oil-rich Libya has reduced worldwide oil supplies. U.S. consumers are now paying $3.22 on average for a gallon, or about 3.8 liters, of gas. In car-dependent California, the average price hit $3.74 a gallon on Thursday. Those prices forced people like aspiring actor Sam Weller to make tough choices.
I'll literally have like $10 in my pocket, and it's sort of like I have to split that between food and gas. So I'll put $5 in the tank in order to get me over the hill, and then I'll use the remainder of the $5 to somehow scrap together lunch.
But the pain doesn't stop at the pump. The high price of fuel has a ripple effect all through the American economy at a time when it's still struggling to recover from the recession. Higher cost of transport boosts the cost of food, travel, manufactured products, and a host of items from airline tickets to eggplants. Price increases act like a tax on consumers, reducing their spending power.
If consumers react to it believing that prices are going to go higher, their confidence will decline, which will cause them to cut back even further on consumer discretionary purchases. That hasn't happened yet, but that's certainly one of the risks that we face.
Traders say the images coming out of the Middle East have spooked the oil market.
It is easy to create fear in the oil market when it is centered on the most important oil-producing region in the world.
The potential impact on jobs and growth, with unemployment already at 9%, makes policymakers in the White House nervous.
Our focus now is on monitoring this and making sure that we know what our options are if they need to be taken.
Some economists predict U.S. gas prices will climb nearly 40 cents per gallon in the coming days. Rob Reynolds, AlJazeera, Los Angeles.
Here's some more protests to look at elsewhere in the Middle East. Thousands on the streets of Jordan on Friday demanding political and economic reform. Around 5,000 people held a rally in Amman amid a strong police presence, though. They are calling for constitutional change. In particular, they want a limit on the powers of the monarch, King Abdullah. However, the government recently introduced financial and political concessions to try to prevent a spillover of anti-government protests, which we have seen elsewhere. in the region. Like Tunisia, where thousands filled the streets of central Tunis. They called it a day of rage against Muammar Gaddafi and the suppression of protests by the Libyan regime. They also want loyalists of the former government to go, including the Prime Minister Mohamed Ghannouchi. So it gives you an idea of how far all of this spreads. These are our hotspots, if you like, though, on Friday around the Middle East. Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi made a surprise appearance in front of his supporters in Tripoli's Green Square. He told them, "We can open the arms stocks to all Libyans, and at that time everything will be red." Then this was from earlier when his troops and militia opened fire on protesters in Tripoli. Move to Iraq. Protests over corruption and a lack of basic services and jobs, that turned violent. Several died in clashes with the security forces right around the country. Back to Egypt, where exactly a month after they started the protests which ousted President Mubarak, Egyptians are still in Cairo's Liberation Square, demanding quick reforms from their military rulers, like the lifting of the emergency laws. And tens of thousands of supporters and opponents of Yemen's president held rival rallies in Sana'a. Anti-government protests have also been staged around Yemen. So it's right around the region, isn't it? But Libya is where we focus, because about 45 minutes ago, 50 minutes ago, Muammar Gaddafi made that surprise appearance in Tripoli's Green Square. This is what he told them.
Be prepared to defend Libya, to defend the Great River, to defend the oil, your dignity, independence, glory, and pride. Let them feel the shame. Let them feel the embarrassment. I'm here among you, among the public in the Green Square. And here you are, the youth of Libya, the children and grandchildren of martyrs of the Battle of Jihad, who crushed the Italian invasion. The Italian Empire was smashed by your forefathers. We are able to crush any foreign aggression by people's will, by the armed people. When necessary, weapon depot will be opened. Every Libyan individual and every Libyan tribe will be armed. So Libya will turn into a burning hell. I am among the public. We will continue to fight. We will defeat them. We will die here on the dear soil of Libya. We will defeat any foreign attempt, as we defeated the former Italian imperialism. This is the formidable force, invincible force of youth. Life without dignity is worthless. Life without green banners hoisted is useless. It is the life of pride, dignity, and victory. The green flag flying and hoisted. You, the youth, be comfortable at any place, in the streets, squares, dance, sing, stay up all night, live a life of dignity with high morals. Muammar al-Gaddafi is one of you. Dance and sing, joy and rejoice.
Yep, dance and sing, rejoice. That's what Muammar Gaddafi wants from his supporters, apparently there in Tripoli. We've got a correspondent in the eastern part of Libya, obviously not naming for security reasons. Just on a point in this speech where Gaddafi said he would arm his supporters to defeat the uprising against him, saying he would basically open the arms cache to them. I wonder what effect that would have on people who have already succeeded, if I can call that, in Libya, because we talk about a lot how people have lost their fear. That's some pretty scary talk coming from the leader as well.
Well, certainly it's talk that they would take quite seriously. And I think that people here, even though they do talk about being liberated, we can't say that I have seen big celebrations yet there is a feeling that you still have to take your precautions and you still have to make sure that you're able to defend yourself. Now, if people here say that they are also ready, that they have their weapons, they also point back out to the fact that they've actually taken weapons from the various weapon caches that have been abandoned in this part of the country, and they point to the fact that they have the army with them. Now, they do also, however, have a feeling that he is sort of isolated, or at least he has lost control of vast parts of the territory. So that is making them strong.
Do they feel literally in control? I mean, I just wonder, in a country like Libya, which has been under such iron-fisted rule for so long, how much you can feel in control when we talk about opposition groups or taking control of parts of the country.
Well, I think they feel they're in control in the sense that there's solidarity among the people. I have to say that they're always on the look for strangers who could be walking around. They're always on the look for what they call mercenaries. They say that they have detained many African nationals, mainly from Chad, who have been hired and flown in by the regime to fight the protesters here when about a week ago. So they're always on the lookout, and there's always, you do hear sometimes people being quite anxious, or news spreading around that there's a column of cars, of four-wheel drives full of mercenaries going into one direction or the other. So, and that certainly gives you an indication that there's still a lot of tension, and there's an awareness that at any time pro-Gaddafi loyalists could trickle into this area and could try to carry out a counter-offensive. But they think, from their point of view, their biggest asset is really this solidarity among people and this determination that this time they will do the job till the end.
Our correspondent with an update on the line from eastern Libya. Thank you for that. You know, maybe we could bring back that split screen we had before. Sorry about that. No, we've lost the picture a moment. But what I was going to say to Tariq Yusuf in the studio with us here, there's our shot here. Awful cliche coming out here, but tale of two cities. This is the same country, and it's almost party atmosphere in Benghazi. I think one of the banners there said, "Tripoli, our hearts are with you." Meanwhile, in Tripoli, look what's happening there.
Yeah. We're not sure, though, that the masses are from Tripoli.
Good point.
And I think if the Tripoli